I joined the Astronomy Club just for fun, and I ended up falling in love with it. And I went to a Geology Club meeting one time to see if I liked it. And there was a presentation on, I think, Venus geochemistry and the stuff that's going on there. And that kind of told me, like, wow, I really want to study this. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
State University. Alon is also the president of the Astronomy Club, a researcher in Dr. Jennifer Irving's lab, and a longtime employee of the Analysis Research Service Center, also known as the ARSC. So the first thing we wanted to talk to you about, Alon, and thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I know you've been a fan of the podcast, so Edgar and I both really wanted to have you here to talk about all these things I just mentioned and maybe a few more. The first thing we really wanted to know about is this cool job that you've had for a while now that I don't really know a lot about. I don't think a lot of people at Texas State know about this service, and that's the ARSC, the Analysis Research Service Center. What is this service? What kind of opportunities does the ARSC provide? And then I should say you're also the lead student employee and you're an equipment trainer. Tell us about it.
So first off, thank you for having me here. Pretty cool. And so the ARSC, essentially it's a shared lab space where researchers can come in and get trained on equipment. We have, can't remember the number off the top of my head, but we have more than 20 pieces of equipment across all of the facilities of the shared research operations kind of umbrella.
Also called the SRO, right? Yeah. So it's like the big SRO, and then underneath is ARSC and maybe something else. I don't know.
Yeah, there's also the molecular beam epitaxy lab, and there's a ERSC too.
There's so many acronyms.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. They have a website where they kind of like explain it a little better. We can put that in the description.
An Excel sheet of like all the acronyms would be
essentially
nice.
Those other acronyms. Those are mainly for material science. The MBE or that I mentioned earlier, the molecular beam epitaxy one. That is a clean room that we have here. So bunny suits, that type of thing.
We saw it at our
we did a tour.
Yeah,
we got the whole bunny suit on. We did it with Prem. That was a lot of fun. Spotless. You have to like fully dress yourself in this what they call a bunny suit, where it's like completely like a sterilized environment or like an aseptic environment.
Yeah, they took a picture of us inside of the cleaning room. Still haven't gone in there.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
That's awesome.
So ARSC, that's like in Supple.
So it's in a few labs. There is, I think, 3 labs in the MIDI building and then 1 in Supple. I'm based out of the one in Supple. That lab houses the laser scanning confocal system and the transmission electron microscope, or TEM. And we actually just got that, I think, last year.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's a nice looking instrument.
Yeah, it was pretty fun to get that set up. I think it got here in the summer peak of COVID, and I had to come in and basically just take out all of the packaging and stuff. It was a pretty fun experience. Yeah.
This sounds expensive.
Oh yeah.
Were you not scared of handling like these I would be like, if I'm handling like equipment that probably costs more than my car, I'd be somewhat scared.
Oh yeah, it's I think it's around $1 million or more.
The TEM, right?
Yeah, the TEM.
Transmission electron microscope. Yeah. So there's the TEM in there. You also work on some other stuff though, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I mainly do the electron microscopy sample preparation.
Okay.
So that's primarily the TEM, but I also do some work with the scanning electron microscope preparation. It really depends on what the, user wants to do. But for scanning electron microscopy, the sample prep for that it's a lot easier to do than TEM.
So how does this work? Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just like, who can use this service? I'm imagining all research labs on campus can take advantage of this. Does it have to be research, or can it be like, I don't know, some sort of extracurricular project, maybe through a student org?
Yeah, so from my understanding, it has to be a funded project.
Okay.
So research labs, they're eligible. You could also do external users from Texas State. They usually come in and they can get trained on the equipment too. And it's essentially a cost recovery center. So external users get charged more than internal users. And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're the lead student employee. So you've at least been here for how many years now?
It's almost been 3 years.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy. Yeah.
How'd you even get involved with the ARSC? How'd you find out about it?
So I found out about it on the Jobs for Cats website.
I forget that exists.
It's a useful resource.
Yeah, but it's very useful.
Yeah. My freshman year, I was pretty bored. I really like being busy, so
Okay.
I was looking for a job. I applied at the chemistry stockroom. I applied at and then I also applied for a job at the shared research operations. And that was during my first semester here. I didn't end up getting the chemistry stockroom job, and I didn't get the shared research operations job the first time. So the next semester, I saw that another position opened, and I was a little scared about reapplying, but I reapplied, and the interview was with a group of people in this conference area. It was pretty scary, but it went pretty well. And I luckily got the job, and I started in like May 2019, I think. And yeah, it's been a really good experience.
Yeah, I mean, you stayed this long, so you clearly enjoy it. Just out of curiosity, we kind of know, we want to know, as the sample preparation technician, I know that's not your title, but I'm going to call it that. What kind of samples have you worked with that you think are, like, what's some of the coolest stuff that you've helped visualize on a microscope or something?
Yeah, so there's been lots of cool stuff. In terms of electron microscopy, some of the stuff I've been doing lately is actually working with electrospun fibers, and I've been preparing those. And we also got another new piece of equipment called the cryo ultramicrotome. And essentially you can go to negative 180 degrees Celsius with that. And ultramicrotome is kind of like a deli slicer, but on the nano level. So we cut about 70 nanometers of polymer, or it's mostly polymers. You could do biological stuff with it too, but mainly polymers. And so for the fibers that I did, that was actually at room temperature, but I embedded it in a resin, and I took some 70 nanometer thick sections of it, and I collected it on a grid and then put it in the TEM. And they were coated with titanium dioxide, so you could see those particles within the structure of the fiber. And then, yeah, it was pretty cool. In terms of the cryo part, I've worked with, I think, polystyrene, essentially a petri dish. And I've cut that at, I think, negative 40 degrees Celsius. And it was super cool. It's a pretty complex, I guess, method, the cryo part, because you're doing it under the liquid nitrogen conditions. So it's pretty wild. And it's interesting because basically I am the expert at that technique here at Texas State.
Oh.
And yeah, that's a cool thing.
That's honestly, it kind of just blows my mind. So I want to know more. It blows my mind how a junior chem major is able to do all this stuff, all these responsibilities, and have all this experience that you can talk about one day, and we'll talk about this, but in your future. In addition to your job, let's say somebody listening, hopefully that's the goal here, is maybe somebody listening now is interested in working for the ARSC. What other jobs are available? What other jobs are there? Are there some jobs available? How could people get involved if they want to?
Yeah, so the ARSC kind of, we, I guess, cycle through student workers because other student workers graduate.
Right.
I will say it's mainly focused on, I guess, material science, if you're interested in that. And a lot of the positions that open up are actually in the facilities with the scanning electron microscope. And after a while, once you've got your bearings there, they might offer if you want to become an equipment trainer, depending on the availability. And yeah, it is a pretty fun job. From the description on the jobs for cats, it's actually a little bit different. When I was originally applying, I was looking at the description there, and I was so scared because I thought to myself, I don't know any of this.
That's usually how it is, right? Like yeah. Whether it's like a research position or like a job like this, it's so technical. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, so when I got it and when I started, I kind of just learned as I went, and the managers there are really, really patient, and they answer a lot of your questions. Mm-hmm. So it's a really supportive environment too.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. I don't know about you, Edgar, but it just seems like a very close-knit group of people. Like y'all are, I'm talking about, I guess the place that I've seen is the one in Supple where you work. It's just, you're underground, right? It's like this green room. Half the place is dark because you're working with microscopes. So it just seems like a fun place that, like this place that's super useful that no one really knows about, but that everyone can take advantage of if they really wanted to. So it's just like one of those things that you don't really know about, and that's why they're interesting. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to display that here to the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say I have two experiences with the facilities, but I'm only really experienced on the facilities that are in MIDI, mm-hmm. Because my project deals with a lot of, it's focused on material science. And so we started using, you may know Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he works in, he's also part of our research lab with Dr. Martin. And so one day he was helping us get trained on an instrument that they have there. And I remember the first time we went, I was like, this is like a whole underground system of, not necessarily tunnels, but like that's how it felt like, because you would enter a room and they had like 3 different instruments doing 3 different things. And then you enter another room and then it's like, you could see atoms on like a screen. And then the other, I haven't used it as much, I will say, though I will need to for my research. And then the other experience I have is because of Prem, when we had that tour where we went to both MIDI and Supple, and then we were able to go into the cleaning rooms. But yeah, I definitely want more people to know about this, because even Maddie, when we were there and we were looking, we're actually in the Supple section, we realized that some of the stuff in Supple we may be able to use for our research lab. I don't know how far she went into like looking into what instruments we could use, but I know she like took note of it and was like, we'll probably use this in the future.
I could kind of talk about some of the instruments that we have there.
Yeah, if you want.
So in Supple specifically, we have the transmission electron microscope and the confocal, the laser scanning confocal microscope. I'll start with Yeah, I'll start with the confocal because that one I know a little bit less about, but I can kind of get it across. Essentially, it's an inverted microscope. It's also brand new. There's, I think, six lasers that you can basically shoot through your sample and determine the fluorescence of it. And it gets these really beautiful pictures too. Yeah.
Is that the one that is in the dark room?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think when we were doing the tour, I can't remember the person's name, but whoever was in the room working the tour at that time, they showed us this 3D like picture of I think it was a fly, right? It was some sort of insect, and we're all like, "Whoa!" You remember?
Yeah,
we're like, "Whoa!" Like, and that was he was. I remember because you mentioned the laser part, and I remember that he was explaining that it was like lasers being shot through like the sample that then creates this image, like stuff like this. I was not aware of that somebody could use for their research purpose and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a cool way to impress like your PIs. Like, hey, I know they have these microscopes, and it'd be cool if I could take a picture of my sample for whatever reason. And they train you how to do it. Mm-hmm. If not, you're like there with the technician, I'm assuming.
They basically can help you with mainly the equipment, and they can kind of guide you for the sample preparation part.
Okay.
I was going to say something else about the confocal. For materials type stuff, we also do have a, what was it? I think an IR detector or something like that. That's also pretty new, and there's a ton of cool science that you could do with it. Mm-hmm. You could stitch the images together to get a whole thing, and it's a pretty amazing piece of equipment.
So I know obviously it depends, right, on what instrument and what equipment you're using. Right. But if you're being trained on a instrument, on how to use it, or a piece of equipment, how long does that take? I know it depends, but just in general, like how long does that take?
So if it's a, I guess, bigger piece of equipment, I think that usually takes about 3 sessions. They're typically an hour and a half. Yeah, and we have a pretty good system about requesting trainings. We have an online system where you could just click a button, send it to the equipment manager, and they'll contact you for training times.
That's really cool because if you think about it, 3 sessions, let's just say an hour and a half each, that's like 4.5 hours of like really useful training that you could put on a resume that then you can use for like later use. Like that's really, really useful.
Yeah. And microscopy is a really good skill to have too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I've from the years working there, it's been pretty interesting seeing all of the people come in and learn the equipment, and just their eyes widen when they get the results, and it's amazing.
Well, we'll move on after this question that I have. What's your favorite piece of equipment there? I know you have many to choose from, but if you had to choose one, and why, obviously.
I'm going to stay loyal to my lab, and I'm going to say the transmission electron microscope.
Nice.
Just because the scale that you can get down on that thing is pretty amazing. That's the piece of equipment where you could see the silicon atoms, or you could get this crazy high resolution. And,
or on the biochemistry side, I mean, that's what's allowed us to get this super high resolution for structures of proteins. In the last decade or so, there's been like a protein structure revolution where now we're actually able to see like the individual amino acids for proteins that we didn't really know what amino acids they had or how they interacted with each other in their folded form of the protein. You had their sequence, but you didn't know how they like folded up into this cool, like you could think of like an origami structure. Like you couldn't, it's a joke. It's like blobology. Like that's what, before like the last, 10 years or so, that's what we studied was the blobology of proteins. And now in the skill is cryo-EM. The technique is cryo-EM. That's how you were able to visualize proteins, and it's remarkable. And so I'm going to grad school hoping I can learn how to do that stuff for sure, right? Like, I mean, I got to. So, yeah, I mean, just the fact that you've even been around one is really cool.
Yeah. I was going to comment on that. So that TEM there, it can actually do some, it's called EDS, or I think X-ray dispersive spectroscopy, where you can essentially tell the elements in that sample. And unfortunately, we don't have a cryo capability.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty cool technique too.
Yeah, maybe one day. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Comes down to the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Super expensive, yeah.
So we want to talk a little bit more about you as a person as well, because you're an interesting guy. I've written down here, I'm sure there's more to this list, but you got some interests in astronomy, chemistry, your chemistry major, geology, microscopy, material science, that's where your research is in. I don't know. I don't want to pressure you with this question, but what do you want to do with all these broad interests that you have, let's say, after college? Like, why are you going to college? You have a very diverse background here. What's next for Alon?
Yeah, so I am hoping to go to graduate school for geochemistry. That's a pretty new field that I've been learning about. And it's not really studied here at Texas State, unfortunately. But I recently just changed my minor there to geology. And it's been just incredible to see how much chemistry goes on inside the Earth, and on other planets too. All of those interests that you listed, it's kind of accumulated in what I'm interested in now.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy because I joined the Astronomy Club just for fun, and I ended up falling in love with it. And I went to a Geology Club meeting one time to see if I liked it, and there was a presentation on, I think, Venus geochemistry and the stuff that's going on there, and that kind of told me, like, wow, I really want to study this. That's awesome.
We don't have the video component to this podcast, but you are also wearing a Mars Perseverance shirt. Clearly representing your interests here. So I don't know much at all about geochemistry. I don't think Edgar does either.
Not at all.
You said you didn't really learn too much about it until not too long ago. Could you tell us a little bit about what excites you about geochemistry, why you're thinking about pursuing it as a career?
So that kind of calls on the microscopy routes too. Essentially what got me into it was when I first started in chemistry, I was really interested in how the elements kind of come together to make the bonds and do all the awesome, cool stuff. And then when I started learning about geology, I learned how when the Earth formed, these elements kind of came together, and it was super hot back then. So there was a lot of reactions going on. And that kind of fascinates me, how you could see the evidence of all that through, I guess, in general chemistry, we kind of learn about lattice structures for most part. And it's kind of an expansion on that. So I'm interested in learning more about that, I guess.
I think you said you're a junior, so I'm assuming the answer is no, but I'm still going to ask. Have you taken descriptive inorganic chemistry?
No, that's next semester.
So there's I would say maybe half a chapter, maybe a chapter, about the quote-unquote beginning of, I guess, the universe. I'm making it sound way cooler than it
half
probably actually is. Yeah, but basically, like, we talk about like what elements came together to then make what we know now as carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and all these different elements. Basically, that first couple rows of the periodic table all started from hydrogen and then helium, and then a helium reaction chain that just started going on. I feel like you're going to enjoy that part of your semester.
Oh, yeah. I'm also taking a class called Earth Materials next semester, which is, I guess it kind of goes more into that too. And from what I've heard, it's essentially a chemistry class also.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's not under the chemistry degree plan, though, is it?
No, it's under
geology. Yeah. Okay.
What department is geology under?
It's under the geography department. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just a really small minor here at Texas State, mainly because up in UT Austin, they have the bigger facilities for that. So Texas State kind of focuses on the geography right now, and UT focuses on geology.
I'd love to see that program expand, like the geology aspect of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What building is that in?
It's mainly based in Evans. Most of the classes there. Yeah.
Okay. It's the one that's by like Derek and the history building, right?
Yeah. Okay. Right in between Derek and the UAC.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to know, on the topic of like your broad interests, how those interests of yours tie into your classes, your research, your job, these things that you have to do every day. Does it help you? Do you feel like it spreads you very thin?
So all of those, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In classes, it's very helpful to have a microscopist's kind of mind. You do a lot of troubleshooting with it, so it helps with research too, and safety protocols, all that stuff. And whenever you're learning something in class, at least for me, sometimes when they say something, I kind of think like, is there a way I can visualize that? Like in the microscope? And specifically for geology, it's been really fun, and I've been pestering my professor with questions about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll just say, as far as graduate school goes, they love to see that you have like these different unique backgrounds, or like a combination of backgrounds like that. You're going to be very, very attractive as an applicant, I'm sure. Let's give the Astronomy Club a shout out. We definitely want to do this. I wrote it here. I try not to regret things, but I certainly wish I got a chance to get more involved with this org.
Me too.
Like you said, you did it just for fun. I think it just looks like so much fun. So tell us what the club does. You are the president. So what kind of stuff does the club do?
Yeah, so usually every Wednesday we go out to the observatory here on campus. It's in the Supple Science Building on the roof. This semester and last semester, we've been doing it every 2 weeks, just because of COVID stuff. And so hopefully next year, we're going to be starting up with the every Wednesday part. But we take out a bunch of telescopes there that we have, and we just point it to whatever's out, basically. We do sky tours. It's pretty awesome, and we just talk about astronomy. And what else? We do a bunch of star parties too. Sometimes we go out to Wimberley every semester. And yeah, if you're interested in going to the observatory though, I think so in the fall, you can see some pretty cool stuff like Jupiter, Saturn, and some other
Just to interrupt you for a second, on your website, which is an amazing website, I'd say, for a student org, y'all have some remarkable pictures on there that you've taken, I'm assuming, with those telescopes. By the way, that's crazy that you go into the microscopes, you're seeing these super small structures, visualizing it, and you're going all the way to like entire planets or stars. I mean, that's crazy. That in and of itself is just like so fascinating. Yeah, you have like the whole spectrum. So
I was about to say,
cool.
it gives you a really good perspective, or at least to you, of like how small yet how large things can be and are. I was gonna mention, I don't know why I've never thought about this before. Our friend Silva would love to go to these things. You know how he had a telescope, and we had, I don't know if you've ever met Silva, but it's one of our friends, and he had a telescope, and he'd always like go outside and use it and like look at the stars. And I think one time, I don't know if you went with him, like I think y'all drove like somewhere, or maybe he did this in the valley. I don't remember.
I think we went near
Yeah, I was like, because you said Wimberley, and that's when it clicked.
Yeah.
Point being is he really likes the stars, and he bought like a telescope where he's able to have like a pretty good picture of the stars and stuff like that. So
that's sweet. Yeah.
But y'all are done this semester, right?
Yeah.
I saw the email. There might be a chance. I know it's always like a weather thing.
We have one more observatory night, and the forecast right now looks a little bit cloudy. But usually, sometimes it does that. It'll say it's cloudy, and then the day of it changes to clear.
Well, if we get the podcast out in time, we'll definitely have that as an advertisement too.
When what date would that be?
Can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's on the website.
It'll be on the 20th.
I'll do a shout out for that. It's sro.txstate.edu.
We'll put that in the description as well. Super cool website. Very, very nice. Very well done. I'm sure that was you behind it, right?
Yeah. You finished it. Yeah.
So, so Alon was formerly the vice president of ACS, and you did a lot of work on our website and everything as the vice president. So, there are a lot of parallels, I think, in that org and in this org. You also do some outreach.
Or
at least maybe before COVID. I know COVID does stuff, but you talk a little bit about that, or
so usually we do some volunteer stuff. So we've done Bobcat Build before, and we, as I said, every semester we do star parties for the community there.
What's a star party?
So it's for the Wimberley community.
Yeah. It's in collaboration with the Dark Sky Committee there.
Oh, that's so nice.
Please explain that. What is that? That sounds really cool.
So Wimberley is a dark sky town or city. There are, I think, only a few in Texas, but if you know about the Big Bend area, that's one massive dark sky area. And Wimberley is actually also a dark sky town where...
What does dark sky mean?
Basically, there's city laws in place where you have to cover your lights. So there's not a lot of light pollution.
I've never even thought of light pollution.
Yeah.
You can't just like take out a telescope like in like Austin, like downtown Austin. Like you won't. It'll be hard to see.
So there's a lot of city laws there where you have to cover your lights. Usually red lights are better for astronomy because they don't affect the light pollution.
We're going to put information for the Astronomy Club in the description as well. But if anybody's interested in getting involved, I would recommend they check out the website. I think there's a way to get involved through there to sign up. Okay.
That's right.
Just want to make sure people find you. And then you've talked about the Geology Club. Are there any other clubs that you'd like to give a shout out to that you think deserve more membership? I know membership is such a hard thing to get these days.
So I guess the next one will be it actually formed out of the Astronomy Club pretty recently. And for any engineering people out there, this would be your jam. It's called the Society for Space Exploration. And one of their goals is to launch a satellite made by Texas State, which is a pretty cool thing. So right now they're working on the satellite itself and also I think some of the antennas to communicate with it. And it's a pretty cool organization for getting into, I guess, aerospace stuff. And it formed out of the Astronomy Club, which is awesome.
You've already had some offspring. And then, I actually wanted to ask you about this too. We're talking a lot about like your science interests, if you will. Is there anything other than like science that you're really passionate about? Maybe like a hobby in music or something?
Yeah. Let's see. I have to call on my non-scientific brain there. Because seriously, most of my brain is microscopy or whatever else. So I sometimes play tennis too. And
that's
yeah,
a cool
it's pretty
hobby.
fun. What else? Do a lot of games.
What games do you play?
I mainly play Minecraft. I am addicted to that. Yeah.
No, when COVID started, I got back into it because it was just a way to remove my mind from the real world for a while.
Yeah, it does a really great job at doing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we only have a few more questions for you. You're planning on graduating next year, right? Or is it?
So I think my current graduation date is around 2024.
Okay.
Yeah. I am not the best student academically, which is a pretty sad thing that I'm always constantly working on.
Well, hold on. Why would you say that? Is it just like you don't take exams well, or is it because you're clearly a very passionate student?
I don't know. So it's kind of I've never been too great at the classes themselves, like doing exams, assignments.
A structured environment like that.
Yeah. And my work ethic is, I guess, as I talked about earlier, it's pretty great. So yeah, that presents its challenges for graduate school. All that other stuff.
You know,
and its obstacles.
Yeah, if it makes you feel better. Also, don't put yourself down. Like, you're a very passionate student, and I feel we all go through these like phases of I'm doing everything wrong, but that's just how it feels in the moment. If it makes you feel any better, I had this conversation with a friend actually earlier today, and we were talking about like GPA in comparison to extracurricular activities, and I told him that the GPA only gets you in the conversation, but like your extracurricular activities is what actually gets you the opportunity. So in my opinion, and from what I've experienced when I've been doing internships and REUs and whatever, I've realized that the quote-unquote brightest student in terms of GPA isn't always necessarily the brightest student in a lab setting or in a group setting or, you know, in a fill-in-the-blank setting. So I guess that just goes to show, try to find your strengths and your weaknesses and acknowledge those, and then just, you know, try to make the best out of them. Because at the end of the day, a GPA is just another number on your transcript that they're going to look at for maybe 5 seconds and then actually be like, oh, he knows about microscopy? You know, that's something more to that person that is unique, that is not just another 3-point whatever.
Yeah, that is definitely true. A lot of the extracurriculars is what I guess gets you. But the GPA also kind of has a high regard.
There is like a lower limit sometimes, which is unfortunate.
Sometimes when looking at grad school applications or scholarship stuff. For a lot of people, it's more discouraging in that your GPA kind of, I guess, makes you think, am I good enough to apply for this? Will they accept me? And it has its own challenges for the people that struggle academically.
I guess it also goes to show how I think we're moving into this era of trying to slowly not do as many standardized tests. I know that some big programs, graduate programs, no longer ask for a GRE. And they focus more on
the entrance exam for grad school.
Yeah, the entrance exam for the
cover
GRE,
bases.
the entrance entrance exam for grad school. A lot of programs are no longer requiring a score for that exam for you to apply to these programs, which in a way is very encouraging. And in my opinion, it encourages you to not worry about another exam that you have to take. Rather, maybe focus the time that you'd be studying for this exam on research or on volunteering or shadowing or, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
right?
The application
of your actual work, right? Because it's all great if you can read a book, study, and then take a test on it. But if you go into lab and you're not aware of what you need to do, if you don't have the skills to, basic skills to be successful in a lab or just communicating in general, then, how useful can you actually be?
Right, yeah. Those GRE scores, I think they've found that a lot of the times it's not a good reflection on the student. Mainly because of what you said there. Yeah,
I would agree. Yeah,
and I'll stand by what I said earlier. You're going to be a highly attractive applicant for grad schools.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I really do appreciate your honesty just now, because I think it's important for anybody listening to. Is like everyone goes through it. They get a grade they didn't like on an exam or a class, and it's like all of a sudden your, capability of doing anything is challenged, and you're like, am I good enough? Whatever. And it's truly not like a course or even a group of courses are not an accurate reflection of the kind of student that you are. So I don't like how you said you're not a good student. Don't say it anymore, because that sort of manifests things itself.
You also sometimes need to know how to accept failure.
True as well.
Because, in science, you fail a lot.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's, you kind of need to learn that sometimes failure is all right.
It's healthy.
Yeah. And, in cases of classes, that's not the best thing, but in experiments and stuff, that's really where it comes in.
Yeah, don't get me started on failure. This semester has just been as far as research goes. So just, a few more questions. So you're clearly a passionate and motivated student, and a good student, I want to add.
Thank you.
Who in your life are you grateful for shaping you into Alon, the person you are now?
I would say, of course, my parents. I grew up in Laredo, Texas, and we persevere a lot there. We're hard workers, living right next to the border. It's given me a, I guess, unique perspective in that. Don't give up type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents have really embodied that too. They're tremendous workers, and
Yeah, of course. I mean, parents help us to get to college. About college, though, is there any professors maybe you've gotten to know along the way, or maybe some people in the ARSC?
Yeah. So I would say my boss, Alyssa Savage.
We got to meet her.
Yeah, we did. She's nice.
Yeah, she is a really great mind on microscopy and just maintaining a lab. And she's taught me a lot about how to keep a lab really well maintained in, safety data sheets, records, and just chemical inventory and all that stuff. And so now whenever I walk into a lab, I'm looking at things and I'm thinking that's not right. Or,
you remember we used to do the lab tours for ACS?
Oh yeah. What a time.
You actually helped do one for the ARSC.
Yeah.
It's posted on our Canvas site if you're curious. You were asking where is your standard operating procedures? Yeah,
and everyone's like,
we were like, we don't know what you're talking about, unfortunately. It's funny perspective. There it is.
Yeah.
So this is a recent addition that we've had to the podcast, but we're starting to ask our guests this question because we believe that it gives a really good insight to the person that we're speaking to. More specifically, how that person thinks of themselves, and for lack of better words, what they want to leave behind as a legacy. So my question to you is, how would you like to be remembered?
So, in terms of here at Texas State?
You could take it as in terms of Texas State, or maybe, in your life, how would you like to be remembered? Whichever is easier to answer.
Right. I guess I'll go with the Texas State. So I think you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in seeing geology expanded at Texas State. And next year, I really hope to kind of get more involved in the Geology Club and help more people kind of discover it. Because if I wasn't such a, I guess, I independently searched for geology information before getting into it. And I had never really considered geology before. And I think it's something that a lot more people would be interested in if, they knew more about it. And, same thing goes for the Astronomy Club. I'd like to see astronomy at Texas State kind of expand. Just this year, I've seen a few people join the Astronomy Club, some different major, and they end up meeting the people there and thinking like, oh, hey, I might want to study this. And they end up changing to physics, which is wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff right there. That's a huge accomplishment to be doing that for multiple people.
Yeah, student organizations are a really good way of kind of just expanding your scientific knowledge and seeing what you want to study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, I was going to say, if in any way ACS can help with that, or myself, I'll still be around next year. So if in any way ACS could help that in that, or I could help in that, let us know, and we'll definitely give you a hand.
Great. Yeah. ACS has been a pretty great part of my college experience. So
yeah, we hope so.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
And thank you. You were a part of it too,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I'm really glad we asked you to be on here, and you were able to be so honest with us and tell us about the person that you are at Texas State. So, we're going to put all this information in the description for anybody who wants to get involved in the SRO, the Astronomy Club. Thank you so much, Alon.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. That's good.
Do okay for my first podcast.
Yeah.
Do okay for my first podcast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Wait. Take everything off. Let's take a picture.
Oh, yes.
Before I forget. Put your headphones on.